The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Robert Tan. Catch up with us on Business Brief. A federal court blocks President Donald Trump from imposing sweeping tariffs and imports under an emergency powers law. This swiftly casts doubt on Trump's signature economic policies, which have shaken global markets, strained trade relations, and fueled concerns over rising inflation and a potential economic slowdown. The ruling from a three-judge panel at the New York-based U.S. Court of International Trade came after lawsuits mounted arguing that Trump's Liberation Day tariffs exceeded his authority and left the U.S. trade policy dependent on his whims. They explain in their decision that the tariff policy is unwise or ineffective since the federal law does not allow it. Asian shares rise after a federal court blocked U.S. President Donald Trump from imposing sweeping tariffs on imports under an emergency powers law. The court found the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act that it does not authorize the use of tariffs. Trump has cited the law as his basis for ordering massive increases on import duties. Japan's Nikkei 225 climbed more than 1%, while South Korea's Kospi led regional gains with nearly 2% increase. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index rose 0.94%, and China's Shanghai Composite edged up 0.74%. Australia's ASX 200 added 0.25%. However, Singapore's Straits Times Index bucked the trend, slipping 0.15%. In the currency market, the US dollar strengthened against most major Asian currencies. The dollar rose 0.70% against the Japanese yen and gained 0.46% against the South Korean won. It also edged higher against the Thai baht by 0.35% and 0.32% against the Singapore dollar. Meanwhile, the dollar was flat against the Hong Kong dollar, while the Australian dollar slipped nearly 0.1%. Gold prices slipped by 0.80%. In contrast, oil prices advanced across the board. West Texas Intermediate crude rose by nearly 2%. Brent crude climbed more than 1%, while Dubai crude edged up 0.19%. And in the crypto space, Bitcoin gained 0.68% and Ethereum jumped almost 4%. Trade experts are urging the Philippines to deepen ties with other ASEAN members as U.S. tariffs trigger global supply chain shifts. Philippine Institute for Development Studies research fellow Rafaelita Aldaba says a stronger regional unity boosts the negotiating power of ASEAN. World Trade Organization envoy Manuel Tihanki agrees, citing ASEAN as the country's anchor for stability and growth. With ASEAN and the U.S. each making up 15% of Philippine exports, PhilExport Executive Vice President Senen Perlada joins the call for long-term reliance on free trade pacts like the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, over unpredictable U.S. policies. The call comes as the country prepares to assume ASEAN chairmanship in 2026. Meanwhile, the MMDA is seeing early gains in road discipline with the revival of the no-contact apprehension policy. On Bilyonaryo news channels at the forefront, MMDA Chairman Don Artes reported a sharp drop in traffic violations since NCAP resumed on May 26.
Yung pong disiplina ang unang-unang improvement. Noong May 19, kasi continuously po kinukuha namin yung datos ng nagbabiolate. Noong May 19, although hindi namin natitikitan before lifting ng TRO, noong May 19, 3,900 plus ang naitala po namin na violation. Noong first day ng implementation, nasa 1,100. Ngayon po, yung next 2 days, 600 plus lang. So, doon po natin makikita na pag meron pala pong nakabantay ay yung ating mga kababayan ay sumusunod po sa batas trapiko.
Power was cut at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport Terminal 3 this morning due to maintenance work. In a Facebook post, the new NAIA Infra Corporation announced that work is limited to the international concourse. Only Gate 101 stayed operational as a bus gate and that contingency plans were in place to avoid delays. Previous power interruptions at the terminal triggered flight delays. The Agriculture Department plans to make more local and imported pork available to help bring down prices. Paolo Barcelon has the full story.
Agriculture Secretary Francisco Tiu Laurel says after the failure of the initial price cap on pork last month to stabilize pork prices, it might come back in the last week of July or in the first week of August. The billionaire agriculture chief's mission to stabilize pork prices to lower than 400 pesos per kilo, a mission the president himself authorized amid ongoing cabinet revamps.
Trying to cut out the middleman. Yan naman ang isang utos ni Pangulo na bawasan, hindi naman totally mawawala ang middleman, no? Pero ang utos ni Pangulo ay bawasan ang middleman.
Secretary Tiu Laurel says he is eyeing both imported and local pork to get the job done.
If we need to use imported meat to lower the price of pork in the market, we will do it. But that is a last resort, no? Gusto ko lang paalala sa lahat na hindi yun ang priority natin. Pero kung kinakailangan, ang utos ni Presidente, yung consumers natin ang tingnan naman ngayon.
The program is eyeing to lower the high prices of pork, something he noticed as he toured around supermarkets and wet markets in Muntinlupa City. Laurel also says President Marcos's campaign promise of 20 pesos per kilo rice will soon be made available to minimum wage earners after the rollout of the program for the said sector was greenlit by the President. 120,000 minimum wage earners are expected to benefit from the program, which will launch on June 13. The program had earlier been launched for solo parents, four-piece beneficiaries, senior citizens, and PWDs. In the coming months, areas with high poverty incidents will soon be targeted for the rollout of the program, especially in Mindanao. While the Agriculture Department, the Bureau of Customs, and the Sugar Regulatory Administration seized 2,050 kilogram bags of sugar amounting to over 9 million pesos. The shipment arrived a month ago from Thailand and was imported by a cooperative based in Rojas City, Capiz. The SRA says La Paz Multipurpose Cooperative did not have permits to release imported sugar. The SRA also says the goods were misdeclared as sweetener mix to lower tariff rates. Had it passed through customs, government would have collected nearly 2 million pesos more in import taxes. Authorities are now moving to blacklist both the cooperative and the shipment's consignee. A shipment of cigarettes from China were also seized alongside the smuggled sugar. Paolo Barcelon, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The Technical Education Skills Development Authority, or TESDA board, approves the national certification for child development workers to professionalize the early childhood education workforce. The 80 million pesos worth of scholarships aims to improve the quality of early childhood care and development for Filipino children. TESDA Chief Francisco Benitez says this is in recognition of the critical role that CW plays in shaping the lives of the country's youngest learners. Benitez adds, with the certification, parents and guardians can be confident that the child development workers have the competencies needed to help children age 0 to 4 in their holistic development. We're taking a short break. The biggest business stories from around the country are up next. You're watching Business Beat. The Bank of the Philippine Islands raises the bar on green lending as it nears its trillion peso environmental social governance loan goal ahead of schedule. More details with Sujin Kim in Makati City. Go ahead, Sujin.
Robert, the Bank of the Philippine Islands is closing in on its 1 trillion peso target for sustainability-linked loans, with over 900 billion pesos already disbursed as of the first quarter of 2025. This represents nearly 39% of its 2.3 trillion total loan book, underscoring the bank's shift towards environmental, social, and governance finance. The goal set for completion by 2026 is now on track to be met ahead of schedule. However, BPI has set a more ambitious benchmark, ensuring that at least 50% of its entire loan portfolio is target sustainability link by the end of 2026. While progress has been significant, the bank acknowledges that this target may be more difficult to achieve given the parallel growth of non-ESG lending. BPI's ESG strategy is backed by its Sustainable Development Finance Program, which has disbursed 322 billion pesos. BPI is also a global leader in transition finance. It is the first Philippine bank to arrange an energy transition financing facility. This supports the bank's time-bound coal phase-out policy, which aims to eliminate coal financing by 2032. On the operations side, BPI has shifted 70 of its branches to 100% renewable energy through its retail aggregation program. BPI has institutionalized ESG across its entire organization. They require that a minimum of 10% of all employees' performance metrics be tied to sustainability targets. Over 20,000 employees are mandated to complete sustainability training courses. Ahead of its next milestone, BPI is developing a Blue Bond framework to support marine conservation, clean water, and other ocean-friendly projects. The framework is expected to be completed within the year, with the timing of the issuance to depend on funding requirements. And those are latest updates from Makati City. Back to you, Robert.
Thank you for that report, Sujin Kim. Meanwhile, European ports are facing severe congestion due to U.S. tariff policies and rising geopolitical tension. The CEO of the port of Antwerp-Bruges in Belgium says the average waiting time for ships at the port has increased from 32 hours at the end of March to 44 hours by mid-May. Several other ports in Europe are facing similar issues. Uncertainty over U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods caused delay and rerouting of shipments. The suspension of additional tariffs on China caused a surge in cargo volume as companies rush to expedite exports, which lead to port congestion. Nvidia beat sales expectations during its fiscal first quarter, but forecast second quarter revenue below market estimates on Wednesday. The tech firm's shares still rose 3% in extended trading. The stock is relatively flat so far this year compared with 2024, when the shares nearly tripled in value. Washington has exerted much effort to prevent Beijing from accessing top-of-the-line U.S. technology. This has led to stricter restrictions on the exports of Nvidia's AI chips.
Here it is, our brand new GeForce RTX 50 series Blackwell architecture. The GPU is just a beast. 92 billion transistors, 4,000 TOPS, 4 petaflops of AI, 3 times higher than the last generation Ada. And we need all of it to generate those pixels that I showed you.
Manitoba declared a state of emergency and urged thousands of people in northern and eastern parts of the province to evacuate on Wednesday. This as wildfires continue to spread in central and western Canada. Satellite images showed wildfires forming and raging across Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinyu said at a news conference that 17,000 people must evacuate. Soccer fields and community centers in Winnipeg and other cities have been turned into evacuation centers. The federal armed forces have been deployed to help transport evacuees. We're taking a short break. Business Brief will be right back. SM Prime Holdings opens its 88th mall on May 30 in Lawag City. SM City Lawag covers 51,000 square meters of retail space with 90% already leased. It's expected to generate around 4,000 jobs. It is the holding firm's first Ilocos mall. It could also construct a hotel there, citing the area's growing tourism. SM Prime's 100 billion peso capital expenditure for 2025 earmarks 67 billion pesos for property development, 21 billion pesos for mall expansion, and 12 billion pesos for office, hospitality, and venues. Aboitiz Infra Capital Incorporated will take over the Bohol Panglao International Airport on June 16. The Aboitiz Group has allotted 4.5 billion pesos to raise the airport's capacity by 25% from 2 million to 2.5 million passengers annually within 2 years. Aboitiz President and CEO Cosette Canilao says the modernization of the airport is not just about upgrading infrastructure, it is also about enabling the continued rise of Bohol as a vibrant tourism and economic hub in the Visayas. Philippine shares returns into the negative territory after yesterday's gain. The PSE index ended lower by 0.2% to close at 6412, finishing the day as the third worst performer in Asia. The sectoral indices ended mixed, with mining and oil falling the most at nearly 2%, while industrial rise the most at 0.5%. But decliners outpaced advancers 92 to 89. Total value turnover reached 4.8 billion pesos. More than half of the day's most active stocks ended in the red, with Bloomberry Resorts falling the most at more than 3%. Meanwhile, at the foreign exchange market, the peso is currently trading at 55.67 against the greenback, weakening from previous close of 55.48. And that's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Robert Tan. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business. Only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. See you then.